Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight, and welcome to our EF Gap Year Alumni panel. I will get to introducing our alumni in just a minute. First of all, my name is Katie Sullivan. I'm a director with EF Gap Year. I sit here in our headquarters in Boston. Obviously, tonight tuning in from my home, but normally in the office. And I'm so excited to be here tonight and introduce our alumni to you all. I'm sure you have plenty of questions for them. Before we get started with that, I just want to run through a few different Zoom etiquette. You'll notice that you're all on mute, so we can't hear you, can't hear any of your background noise, so no need to worry about any of that. But I'm sure you do have questions, and so what we ask of you is, if you look on your screen, you should see a Q&A bubble. So type in anything that you're thinking of. If it comes up, if you know ahead of time, you can type it in now. If it comes up along the way while panelists are speaking, just plug it in. You won't be interrupting anyone, and we'll be sure to get through everyone's questions. The other thing, if there's anything that's very specific or programmatic, my colleague Rebecca is also on the line. You can't see her face, but she may be answering you, just typing back to you some specific answers as well, just to be helpful there. So enough of that. I want to introduce our alumni. So you can see on the screen here these wonderful people. But first off, I have Helen Abbott with us, and Helen is from our original gap year class. So she started in fall of 2018 and did the year program, graduating in 2019 with us. Helen did her language study. She did Italian in Rome. She did service learning in Thailand, and then an internship in Milan. And Helen is tuning in tonight from home in North Carolina, where she's doing virtual college because of everything going on and online finals and all of that. But yeah, Helen, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah,
Then
no problem.
we have Sarah Schildwachter, who finished, who did our program this past fall. So she just finished last December. Sarah actually did both of her modules back-to-back internship in Sydney. And she has a fun story to go with that, which I'll let her talk about. And then we have Diego, who just finished up his gap year. So he started last fall and actually just finished his program last month. He actually was abroad when coronavirus was getting crazy out there and had to come home a bit early, like all of our students actually. So he can talk a little bit about that if anyone has questions, but he is now home in Los Angeles. So thank you to our panelists so much. I know that we'll probably have plenty of questions coming in for you. For those of you joining that are very new to our program, I just want to very high level talk about what the program is. We have a 12-week semester program that both Sarah and Sarah did, and then we have the 25-week gap year program that Helen and Diego both did. So they can talk to you a bit about that. But the programs allow you to kind of customize it. You can see from where our alumni here have gone, you can customize where you go, combining language, service learning, and internships. So you can kind of pick and choose where you go in the world, build your own for whatever you are looking for and what you want to get out of the program. For those of you who have very specific programmatic questions, we can always take those and answer those with you, or your GAP contact can as well. Tonight, obviously, we want to get the most out of what the alumni have to say about their experience and all of that. So I'm going to run through some questions with them and then open it up to all of your questions, our audience tonight. So to kick that off, I want to hear from all of our alumni. My first question is just, why did you decide to take a gap year or gap semester? So I'm going to start with Helen, and just, Helen, walk us through kind of, I know it's back in time a little bit for you now, but why did you decide to take a gap year?
Sure. Well, so people ask me this a lot because it's not super common to take a gap year, but I was really struggling with two choices for college. You know, I could go in-state or I could move out of my state and, you know, really branch out. And I didn't really want to do either. You know, like I was super confused and like feeling a lot of pressure from my class to, you know, go straight to college and also to just be different. And so my parents gave me this option of like, hey, maybe you want to consider taking a gap year. And I was like, absolutely against it. I was like, no way, mom and dad, like, I am going to college. Like, you can't stop me. Like, I'm flying out of the nest. And but as soon as I like started researching a gap year, I like decided I knew exactly what I had to do, and I definitely don't regret it at all. It has, like absolutely shaped the way my life has gone. And if I hadn't have taken a gap year, then I don't know what that would be like. So it was my motivations were from home and personal.
Absolutely. Thanks, Helen. And how about you, Sarah? How come you decided to take the gap semester?
So kind of like Helen, I felt like I was the only person in my entire class of 2019 who didn't know where they wanted to go or what they wanted to do with the rest of their life. So I looked into a bunch of gap year programs, but I wanted something that I could structure towards a possible job opportunity in the future, or something that could go on my CV letter that I would be sending to potential jobs in the future. And EF offered the internship program, which I chose to do double of because I thought it would be a great experience to just spend 8 weeks at one company learning from them. And I've also always loved traveling. I did study abroad in the Netherlands my senior year as well. So I just really wanted to find a structured program that would allow me to do both of those.
Amazing. And just because you're talking about this, you obviously got a great work experience and ended up staying. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I was doing my double internship in Sydney, and I was interning in graphic design and marketing for a company called Dogue, which is Vogue with a D. It's a luxury dog boarding and grooming company. And so I was working for them in their headquarter office. And about 4 weeks through my 8-week-long internship, the CEO and my boss decided they wanted to offer me a full-time job. So I ended up staying about 6 months total in Sydney, Australia, working for them, and then was sent home to do marketing for them long distance.
Pretty incredible. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And Diego, how about you? Why did you decide to take a gap year?
Hey, I decided to take a gap year because I had applied to my dream college. It's called Parsons, and that's the only school I applied to because I was really confident I was going to get in, and I just didn't really see myself anywhere else at that point. And I ended up getting rejected in 2019, and I was really sad by it. I was totally confused. I had a backup plan, and I wasn't really excited about it. I was just completely lost. And then my mom found the gap year program from an email, and I started researching about it, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing next year. You got to do so many different things. And I looked at all the other gap year programs, and I just found that this one was like the most well-rounded out of all of them. And so that's why I decided to do a gap year with EF.
Amazing. And tell us also, I love, your news because you reapplied to Parsons, right?
Mm-hmm. And happily, I got in about a month ago now, which I'm super happy about. And it definitely made me look at my whole experience that much more worth it. And, I'm definitely feel like I got everything that I wanted to get out of it.
Amazing. Thanks, Diego. So along those lines, I'll have you talk a little bit about that. I'm actually just going to keep it with you, Diego, of how did your gap year affect you?
It affected me in so many little different ways. I would say each module is different. Language, I saw such an improvement in my Spanish, and I'm Latino. So I was able to communicate with my family more, communicate with the locals more. It made my experience in Barcelona better. I gained a sense of independence, things I liked, didn't like. And then, moving to Costa Rica, I was able to, use my, improved Spanish speaking skills, talking to locals there, doing different, service projects affected, me on the inside. I just kind of got a different perspective of the world around me, and it even translated into, my future career path. I want to go into fashion design. And I wrote about that in my essay for college this year, is that, you know, I wanted to look at it as much more purpose-based and service-based and philanthropist-based, you know, kind of work, instead of so commercial and kind of frivolous. I want to make it much more meaningful. So the whole service module really affected me in that way as for my future career. And then the internship, I totally just kind of like blossomed, you know, using things that I learned from the first semester. I applied that to the second semester, and I was much more confident and excited to, you know, be independent again and visit all these different places and apply to college. And working in that kind of business style environment made me excited about my future career of the business world too.
Yes, absolutely. Amazing. Thank you. Sarah, let's hear from you. How did it affect you as a person?
So I've always sort of been a pretty confident person, I would say, but this really brought me out of my comfort zone because I've never traveled with a large group, and I found different ways to connect with people. And my favorite part was learning all about my other gap cohort people's stories and what brought everyone to want to take a gap year. And I just found that really interesting that everyone's different perspective on why they wanted to take a gap year brought us all to the same place. And traveling with them through Europe was probably some of the funnest 2 weeks of my life. Just getting to see why people were there and how they were spending their time, and then going to Sydney and learning the Australian culture, and then staying there for a longer time really just shaped me into a different person. And it helped me discover some new passions that I didn't even know about that I had, and that are taking me in a completely different direction.
Amazing. Great. And Helen, how about you?
I don't even know like how to list all of the ways that my gap year has affected me, because, you know, I've been back for a whole year now, and I notice things that, you know, I think just because of my gap year every day. But I would say mainly among my like freshman class at school, I definitely feel much more prepared. I feel like I'm able to be safer around campus, and, you know, I have a lot more I don't know if maturity is the right word, but I'm able to, you know, sort of think wholeheartedly about things going on campus, and I know what to get involved in. And also in small ways, such as, you know, my relationships with my professors, I'm able to sort of contextualize my interests. So for example, you know, I had this kind of, you know, English professor who I wasn't really getting along with. You know, we didn't really vibe. But then, you know, I sat down and I talked to her, and I figured out that she had actually worked at a specific national park in Australia that we had visited, and she had worked there for a year, and it was super rare that I had actually like been there. And so that completely like shaped my semester with her, and I was able to like create that bond specifically like from a gap year experience. But yeah, I would say that, you know, like my maturity level, my readiness for college, and my ability to sort of take on tasks, you know, head on, and, you know, also to manage problems. I think that's a huge deal. You know, I had a lot of travel issues. That's going to happen like with any travel. Y'all all know that. But I'm so confident to be able to, you know, travel by myself and like live alone at school without, you know, like without as much risk. So definitely.
It's great. A lot of really great points there. And I think, yeah, like travel is, you know, there's flight delays, cancellations, lost luggage, all that stuff. And we see a lot of our students just learn to kind of roll with the punches, whereas one thing might have been a, you know, much bigger deal in the past. You talked a little bit about how you notice the difference between you and your peers. I know Diego and Sarah, you haven't been to a college campus yet, but even just maybe knowing your friends back home that went straight to school, are there things that you've noticed that you know, might be different about you than them and their experience now? Sarah, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I'd love to. Even while I was still in Australia, I had my friends texting me and asking me what was going on and like what I was doing. And while I was explaining it to them, they just were verbalizing that they don't really feel like they're meant to be at college yet. And I know they had a complete turnaround in the second semester, but everyone was saying that they had just wished that they had done what I did and took a little bit of a break, traveled a little bit, and then started an internship or went and did service learning or a language study. And I felt sort of like I always kind of felt behind my class because I wasn't going to college right away. But then at that point, I felt in front because I had all this world experience and this world knowledge from traveling through Europe and speaking with people and using my Spanish and then going and doing an internship. I felt like a more well-rounded person. And then I came out of it ready to go take classes and work at a job opportunity I didn't know I would have. And so I felt a little bit more in front of my peers in that aspect.
Absolutely. And how about Diego? I see you nodding a lot. So how about you?
I'm like, I second that. I definitely relate to Sarah on how like she felt behind from her peers, like, oh my God, like, am I making the right decision? Like, I'm really about to like do this instead of college. And you know, throughout my gap year too, like many people would be like, oh my God, I wish I did what you did. Like, it looks so cool. Like, it looks so amazing. So I definitely got that response. But for me, I feel like the difference is I'm just so much more independent, responsible, and mature because of my gap year. And so now that I'm kind of ready to go to college and I'm excited to go to college versus some of my friends, like they're not excited to go to college and some of them still don't even know what they want to do. And whereas I'm really certain on all those things because I was able to take the time to kind of ask myself these questions. So yeah, I just feel more ready as a whole. You're on mute.
All right, thank you. So my last question before we turn it over to our audience questions is just, what would your advice be to someone, you know, a senior in high school right now that's contemplating taking a gap year? What's your advice, Diego?
I would say that if you have any concerns about, you know, if you're going to be a year behind, will it pay off? You know, is this the right thing? Or, you know, maybe you might be hearing some criticisms from teachers, friends, and family. I would just say, honestly, pay no attention to them and just kind of do it for yourself. Think about yourself and if it's the next opportunity for you and option for you. So yeah, I would say do it. Take a gap year. You won't regret it at all. So that's my piece of advice.
How about you, Helen?
Yeah, so I also totally agree with Diego. I was super concerned that all my friends were just gonna, you know, like totally be living their life without me, and I would be so behind and like, you know, at like a lower level than when I got to college, because I was going to a big state school where a lot of my friends ended up going too. But once I got to school as a freshman, I thought that it was great to have friends who were sophomores. You know, like I knew people. I like, you know, they already had their plans. I could go along with them before making my own friends. So I thought that it was much less overwhelming, first of all, to, you know, like go from something so crazy and exciting to something, you know, that you know better. Even though it's a whole new experience, I still had friends that were there and they could show me all around. And so I wouldn't worry about that if that's your main concern, that you're going to fall behind. You're not. You're going to be so much farther ahead. Just trust me. Yeah. And I would also just, something I always tell people who are considering taking a gap year is that if you do it, you need to live in the moment. You know, like this was a whole year ago for me, and I completely like wish that I journaled more. I took more photos. I took like 20,000 photos, and I still wish I took more. Yeah. So just live in the moment, be present. And that's my, you know, key words.
Amazing. Such good advice. Sarah, what about you?
So I guess a lot of it was that like my friends, like they kind of, people didn't really understand what the point of a gap year was. I was the only person in my class who didn't go to college right away, and like they just were kind of confused. So even the principal, when we were doing graduation, he didn't want to announce that I was just taking a gap year. He said she's accepted an internship. And so I think there's a lot of stigma around what goes on in a gap year. And I think EF does a really great job at combating that and saying that it's not just a break. It's a constructive time to work on yourself and to work on furthering your goals and opportunities in the future. And so I on top of the internship, I had this 2-week-long excursion in Europe where I learned so much culture. I got to go to the Louvre. I got to explore Barcelona and speak Spanish. I got to go back to the Netherlands and see my host family from an old student exchange. And I think that was just a really a great time to blossom into a different person and learn a little bit more about yourself. And I did have hesitations about taking a gap year, but that all kind of breaks down once you get there. And like Helen said, living in the moment, and it's such a fun opportunity. And I definitely wish I did the year program instead of just the semester because I wanted to stay longer.
Amazing. I remember actually you reaching out to us when you were still a senior in high school, when you were booked and on college decision day, and you were like, can I get a gap year t-shirt? Everyone's wearing their college shirt. I want to wear a gap year shirt. And you were, obviously, but that's so true what you're hearing. I'm sure some of our audience tonight, is like, oh, I don't want to be the one person and all of that. But obviously those are very real feelings and fears. So thank you guys so much for sharing. Now I do want to turn it over to questions. So I see we already have some in there, so I'm going to jump in. But for anyone watching tonight, feel free to throw your questions in that Q&A box, and we will get to all of them. So to start it off, we have: do you stay with the group the entire time, or some of the things alone? Does someone want to talk about what this was like? I mean, I can obviously explain it, but someone who's been through it, what it's like, you move from some of it as group work to, or group movement to independent. Who wants to take that?
I can speak to it.
Great.
I mean, I'm sure we all could. But so for me, it was really valuable to be able to move through the group and the solo settings. So I'm kind of an introvert, but like an extroverted introvert. So I loved being with the group and for traveling through the immersion tours. And then also in the cities where you have your language, your service learning, and your internship. And especially it was really valuable to make friends really fast. And then, parts of it are also solo. So, like when you're in your internship, for example, you'll go to work probably alone. So, that can be an interesting learning curve. Like I had to take an hour to, take the metro in Milan by myself. Like I was like, what life am I living? Like, this is not my life. But yeah, so that was solo, and it really I realized that I don't need to depend on other people to travel. I ended up actually taking a 3-week solo travel trip at the end of my gap year. And I went to London, Paris, and Greece alone at the end. And that is something I totally would not have expected of myself. I was an 18-year-old girl. I don't know, I wouldn't have thought that was safe. I wouldn't have thought that was doable, but I totally did it, and I was able to manage in a totally safe way where my parents completely trusted me and I trusted myself. So yes, there are parts that are together, and then there are parts where you'll be able to explore and be solo, and they're both really valuable.
Yeah, great, Helen. Thank you for that. And I think to just add on to that, you're never alone in your city. So solo is what Helen's talking about, is her actual internship, but you obviously live with other people from your cohort. Other people were in Milan with you. One thing that I always mention is if someone, for whatever reason, is going to or has picked a place that they would be on their own, we will let them know, no one else is going to that destination. Do you want to continue to go there, or would you like to move? We really believe that the best experience is when you're with peers. Obviously, there's always going to be staff in that city, but so we try to get people to group together. But I know for this fall and this coming year, we wouldn't have anyone alone. So that's, nice. But you do have that period of building that independence. Yeah, Diego, do you want to add to that?
I just wanted to kind of bring the perspective of maybe the tours. I don't know if that's what they're wondering about too, but I would say during the tours, you get a mix of alone, free time away from the tour guide and the group. So it's a mix, obviously you have directed tours with the whole group, seeing different sites, but you also have time to kind of explore whatever your city in with your friends and whatnot. So there's definitely a good balance throughout the year. You get a sense of independence, but also security with a group.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Someone asked, I know someone had asked, did you apply to school before going on the gap year? And Diego, you talked about your applying to school and whatnot. How about you, Helen and Sarah?
Okay.
No, sorry, Diego, you already touched on this, but how about you, Helen?
Okay, yeah. So I did apply, and I was accepted at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill before taking my gap year. And so someone else I've noticed asked about like the two colleges I chose to choose between. But so I was choosing between going to school in New York City and going to school at Chapel Hill. And, there's a big cost difference and, a big commitment difference, I think. And so my parents sort of gave me this option of like possibly going to the in-state school and taking a gap year. And so that's why I did that. But I did apply first, which I was really lucky to get in. And then I deferred. So that meant I just emailed the university pretty much like, it was like, hi, I'm admitted for the class of whatever. Like, I just want to take a gap year. Here's the link to my program. And then they were like, okay, cool. And then like, I was just put on the email chain for the next year and it worked out perfectly. But I do have friends in my cohort, and I don't know if Diego or Sarah did this, or Diego did. But they applied during the year. And that worked out for them pretty well. Obviously like it's more convenient if you apply before, or if you, like commit to a school before, but it doesn't really matter. And the gap year is a really great time to like develop on your skills and, reapply, as Diego, I'm sure, understands.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Sarah, you want to talk about your high school, like, did you apply during high school and how did that go?
I didn't apply during high school. I waited until after my gap year just because I wasn't 100% sure what was going to happen with my internship. And so after I was offered the full-time job, and I stayed there a little bit longer, I put off applying again. And then when I arrived home, I applied to Southern New Hampshire University. And I was trying to decide on my gap year. I knew I wanted to do something that involved business, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go more towards business administration or marketing or accounting. So after doing the internship in marketing, I firmed up that I wanted to do marketing with a minor in nutrition. And so I'm currently taking classes at Southern New Hampshire online to do both of those.
Awesome. And along those lines, we have Amelia asking, did anyone take the opportunity to earn credits on the gap year or gap semester? Did any of you do the credit program through SNHU? Nope.
I'm probably going to excise on it, but I haven't yet.
Okay, cool. So do it kind of retroactively, but we do have plenty of students that do that. So Amelia, we can obviously connect you to someone that has.
Can I speak to that really quick?
Yeah, of course.
So when I was in Rome, I had a really good friend named Abby, and she had signed up for the Southern New Hampshire State University online classes. And I was really impressed, and I was wishing I had done it because she actually like went out and like interviewed people in Rome about, I think she interviewed like, I don't know. Never mind. I don't remember. But she definitely like, she went out in the city and like started talking to people, and like that was for part of her assignment. And like I noticed she was like learning Italian to read the newspaper for her assignment. Like I thought that was so cool, and definitely not your typical college class. So yeah, she loved it and she got a lot out of it. So
awesome. Thanks, Helen. Great. So we usually get a lot of questions about internships. So I actually think we'll try to cover some of these questions, but also just have maybe you guys each talk about your internship, what it was like, what was your commute like, what was your role? And then we can go into some more specific questions, maybe touch on kind of how you picked where you went and what that was like. Do you want to start, Helen?
Yes, sure. So I went to Milan, and I don't know if that's an option anymore. I'm pretty sure it's not, but this applies to a lot of European cities. So I really wanted to go into fashion. Like, I don't know where that really came from. It was like my senior year, I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like UNC doesn't even have a fashion program, but I was like, this is a great path for me. So I chose Milan because it's like the fashion capital of the world. And, I was offered an internship at this place called MB New Media Agency, and it's pretty much an online marketing agency who it's focused at influencer management. So daily we would have influencers come in, and we would create these content photo shoots for them, and like pretty much create their Instagram feed. We managed Levi's Italia, which was cool. I got to, like spend some time in like the Levi's store, like, giving influencers free stuff. That was pretty cool. And yeah, so it's not something that I want to do in the future, definitely. But I learned that, how an office worked. And, it took me a while to kind of get used to the office, because, like they spoke mostly in Italian, but they spoke English to me and English when it involved me. So that was good. But it was hard to, sort of fit in, as this like young American teenager with like no background in fashion. Definitely like, a little bit of a learning curve. But after about 3 weeks, I would say, like they started, giving me more things to do, which was important because I was, a little bored sitting there. I would have to ask for things to do because they didn't know what my skills were and they didn't know what I was interested in. And so I started asking for a lot of things to do. And then they would say, hey, like, do you want to come watch this photo shoot? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, hey, we actually have a Milan Fashion Week event. Like, do you want to come to the Fashion Week event? And I was like, yes, thank you. So that was a really great opportunity. But I had to advocate for myself because they did not know that I wanted to be there at all. And actually, they told me in the last week, like, they were like, we had 2 American interns in the past, and they just sat at that desk the whole time, and they didn't want to do anything. And so we really just thought you were like them, but you weren't. So, yeah, I really just had to advocate for myself. And it was an interesting experience, and definitely like when I talk about it to my peers at school or to my friends, they're like, what? Like, but it was a really cool time.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't have something similar. I think that's a really good point. We always have to, in our advisors and whatnot, talk to students a lot about having to advocate for themselves because you're going to get more the more you put into it. How about Diego, want to talk about your internship?
Yeah, mine was really cool. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was in marketing. There's nothing in fashion marketing, which is what I was curious in. So the next best thing was marketing. Just in general, they did a ton of different things, but my internship was really nice. I only had like a 10-minute subway ride to my internship from my apartment, so the commute wasn't too bad. And then how it was set up was it was in a co-working space. So there was a lot of freelance people there, different small companies. And we actually had like a cafe that was like connected to the co-working space. So like throughout the day, I had this card that they gave me where I got to get like a free latte or like flat white and stuff like that, which is really fun because like I love coffee. After the internship though, I really enjoyed it. I felt like I learned a lot about marketing and everything that goes into it and just like all the little tricks that there are to that. And it was only 2 people that worked for the company. It was my 2 bosses, and then my other 2 interns that were from my program too. So it was pretty small, but I got to like have conversations with other people in the office. I sat next to this group of guys who had met from different parts of the globe from a Craigslist like offer, and they all came to Berlin and started working together. So it was really nice just like sparking conversations with people and like being in that business environment was just really, I don't know, it made me feel like I was doing something, which is cool.
A professional.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, I know you obviously already talked a bit about the internship. Is there anything else you would add, or what was your commute like in the day-to-day tasks?
Yeah. So I was offered 2 internships between a reusable plastics company and a dog grooming company. I've trained service dogs in the past, so obviously picked the dog grooming one. And that one was a little bit different for me because I worked at Starbucks in the past, so that was person-to-person sales, where your customer is already like guaranteed to buy. And then I kind of got to step behind the scenes and work in marketing and how to facilitate those sales and how to drive business in. So it was really great to see it from a different perspective. I learned a lot about social media marketing. I went into it with minimal knowledge about the Adobe suite, and I came out of it pretty great in Photoshop. I was creating most of their ads. I created we opened 2 stores in the time I was there. I created all of the artwork that went out for that. So I definitely felt like my skills had improved like tremendously. I learned a lot. And then my commute, I lived in an apartment in kind of eastern Sydney, and I commuted to like the western side near Bondi, and that was about a 30-minute bus ride, but it was like a 10-minute walk to the bus stop, and I actually loved commuting to work every day. It was super cool. You get to feel like a real adult, so that was really fun. And the buses and transportation everywhere else besides Boston is amazing. So that was really great to see a transportation system that actually functions.
Yes, I love that. Awesome. And do you want to touch on, so you said you were offered two, and how did that, for people tuning in that haven't obviously been through this process, you work with your advisor who then works with the teams overseas to help find you a placement. So did you interview with two companies, or did they just offer them up to then interview?
Yeah, so I was offered both interviews,
Okay.
and I completed both of them in the same day, back to back. And it was more or less a conversation. I find that a lot of employers more or less want to get to know you as a person and what your interests are, especially going into an internship. They want people with drive who want to be there and want to put forth new ideas. They don't want, like what Helen said, two American teenagers sitting there not doing anything. So I definitely felt like it was a nice like flow conversation interview where they just wanted to get to know me, and I was offered both jobs at the end of the each interview, and then I just said like, thank you so much, I'll get back to you. And then I called my advisor through EF and I talked it out with her and decided that I'd be more passionate about the dog grooming one because I love dogs. So
Great. Love that. Helen or Diego, do either of you have, because that's not always the case that you would have two offers. Do either of you have a different experience that you want to talk about? Helen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So how it works is they'll find you a couple offers, and maybe, like they're all like pretty much tailored to what you want. In my first one, I was pretty general about like what I wanted from an internship. So I just put in like marketing and like travel and like stuff like that. And so the first offer for an interview that I got was from a British high school in Milan. And obviously like I wasn't as interested in that. And I would be like an office assistant, which is like, it would have been really cool. And I had an interview with them. And then so they wanted to have a second interview with me where I like met with the principal. And so I decided that, I should pursue a different option before I get that like heavily marketing agency, and pretty much just had like a 10-minute conversation with her. And she was like, yeah, sure. Like you sound great. And so that was definitely, sort of the gateway to that marketing agency that I was able to intern at. And I'm glad that I went with one versus the other. So
Great. Awesome. Yeah. It is a great, preparing, the advisors work with you on your resume and all that. So for some, candidates who haven't built a resume and then obviously doing an interview, it's not like the most stressful interview, but still a good practice to have to do for a lot of you for your first time. Okay, this is a great one, which I think you all can probably talk to. Were you scared to go alone? So to go on the program alone, and how long did it take you to make connections, friendships with other students? Love this question. Who wants to jump on that? Sarah.
I get that one. So I come from a really small town. I graduated with a class of 80 people, which is super tiny in comparison to a lot of my other friends that I met on the gap year program. So going into it, I've like had 4 or 5 friends my entire life. So I was freaking out because I had done like a leadership program in the past where I went to Chicago and I'd met friends there, but I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be traveling with these people. Like, how is this going to go? And like within 10 minutes of arriving to the airport where all the other Boston kids were, my nerves were so eased. Like a lot of the kids that go on these programs were all there for the same reason. And so it's so easy to make connections with people. And by the flight, when we had landed in New York, like I was already best friends with one girl named Ruby, and we still talk like every day. So it's obviously very scary, and like it's sad when you get dropped off at the airport by your parents and like you're crying goodbye. But like it's such a fun opportunity, and like you spend 2 weeks with these people in Europe and then you say goodbye, and we were all tearing up at the end, like before we all went off in our separate ways. And like I know a bunch of us are doing reunions, like everyone's meeting up with their friends again. So it's definitely nothing to be scared of. You're gonna make friends, and like I guarantee you there's at least 3 people there that you're gonna bond with forever.
Yes, I think it's one of the coolest things to watch these groups basically turn in from strangers to family, right? I mean, would you all agree, Helen, Diego? Yeah, Diego. Diego
Yeah.
wants to jump in here.
I mean, I second everything you said. Like, everyone's in the same boat as you are, so don't have any nerves about that. Everyone's super open to meeting people, talking to people. Like, no one's gonna be like, why is she talking to me? Like, everybody was so much more welcoming and nice than I thought they were gonna be, honestly. And I would say, how long did it take? Oh my, like, orientation is like 3 days, and by then, like, you already like have like all these groups and people, and it's just like everything happens like so fast. Like, literally, like Sarah said, like by the end of immersion, like, you're gonna be so sad to say bye to these people who you spent 2 weeks with. Like, it seems so short, but like, you get so much closer so much faster, because like, these are the people who are with you, you know. So yeah, I would not worry about making friends at all.
Yeah, great. I'm going to keep going just for the interest of time. So great question here. I'm considering a gap year. The thing is, I graduated high school in 2019, and even though I knew back then I should have taken a break from schooling, I didn't listen to my gut feelings. So I did a year of college, but I was miserable. My question is, would it still be wise to take a program like this now, or is it too late? Who would like to jump on that?
So this isn't like personally me, but one of my friends that I made in the program, her name's Sammy. She actually did a year at Boulder, and then she decided to take a gap year because she didn't really know what she was doing there, or like what she wanted to do specifically. And so she took the gap year, obviously had an amazing time, amazing memories, and then she reapplied to different schools, and got into a lot. Parsons being one of them. She's a fellow artist, so she got into a few universities. So I would definitely still encourage it, because I mean, I think traveling should always be encouraged. And like, the whole timeline thing, just don't look at the societal timeline that everyone is telling you to. Just look at what's best for you.
Thank you, Diego. Anyone else want to talk? I mean, we always have, to who's asking this question, we always have students that are not fresh out of high school. There's, you know, there is a mix. We also have a webinar specifically for this Thursday at 7 p.m. I think, Rebecca, if you can text, message that to the person asking this question. But yeah, that's for people specifically that are taking a gap mid-college or at some point during college. But Sarah or Helen, do you have any, Helen, you went off mute. So do you have anything about maybe people in your cohort that did the same?
Yeah, sure. So we had a few in our cohort, and they were, you know, like much older than me. I mean, by a couple years, probably like 19 or 20 at the time. And, you know, I thought it was so cool that they decided to do that. And it definitely, like, following their path, like, or following their, you know, sort of presence after the gap year, they're definitely, like, they have tailored their ideas of like where they want to be, or they changed their like direction completely. And I don't want to give a specific example, but they've like totally done that. And I wanted to say that at my university, they've actually started advertising something called a bridge year. And that, you know, is a year in the middle of college that you take to sort of redirection yourself, and do something like travel or do an internship. And it's been a super popular option. And I think that it could definitely, you know, like give you the clarity that you need to figure out like what you want to do. You know, like I just finished my first year, and I have friends who like are changing their majors and like transferring schools and like totally, you know, reassessing their whole life pretty much. And I feel like I definitely gained a lot of clarity from my gap year. So I would highly recommend it, but that's just me personally.
Great. Thanks, Helen. I'm going to switch over to Shani. So when you guys went into your gap year, what level of language were you in? And did you start a totally new one? So for Diego and Helen, who you both did language study, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I can just start real quick.
Yeah.
So I had been to Italy previously for a short-term exchange program, and I lived with a host family then, and they were trying to teach me Italian, but like I really only learned like pasta, pizza, like per favore, and so I really had no experience with Italian prior to the language school. And so at the language school, you do classes every day, or Monday through Friday, which are really hands-on, and you know, we play a lot of games, and like do a lot of little fun activities. And we went out and like made pasta and stuff like that. And I learned so much Italian that I was able to come to school in the fall, take a placement test, and place out of Italian 101. And I was like totally not expecting that. Like it had been half a year since I had taken Italian in Rome. Like I do not know how I did that, but I did. And I took Italian 102, and those are my two language credits that I needed. So it was totally worth it for that. And I noticed somebody asking about like tactical things to put on your resume and classes, and that got me a credit. So like, even though I didn't do the dual enrollment through SNHU, like I got a credit for my gap year, like done. So that was really useful.
Awesome. And Diego, did you have Spanish skills from prior?
I did have a little Spanish speaking skills prior. But when I went, I was just one level above everyone else. But I still learned so much. And I would say what I can add on to this is I saw most of, my friends in the gap year who didn't know like any Spanish, and they saw their Spanish improve, and they were able to practice it in Costa Rica, and it helped them like embrace the culture more, I feel like, or whatever language for whatever location you choose. I think that's really important. So yeah.
Great.
It's just
Awesome.
how much you put into it too.
What's that?
It's just how much you put into it.
Exactly.
Like that's how much you're gonna get back from it. And that's what I saw is the people who put in more work, they saw their language improve.
Right. Absolutely. So we have a question. My daughter's on the fence about taking a gap year, is not on the fence about taking a gap year, but we are on the fence about booking. If we get past the June 30th cancellation date, what are some alternative fall semesters that might be offered to students? We're concerned what she chooses is what she get. I'll actually answer this one since I don't know that you guys can speak to it, but we are coming out with further terms and conditions for post this June 30th cancellation date, and what that would look like given, the climate and if things improve or don't or whatnot. But as of right now, obviously we're keeping our eye on everything coronavirus related and planning everything for the fall as scheduled. One thing that we will obviously talk to everyone about is flexibility. And so I think the question here, what are some of the alternative fall semesters that may be offered to students? So alternative semesters, we're actually looking at some options of not actually moving to multiple countries as a backup plan if we need to. All of this would come out well before the June 30th cancellation date, so you could make those decisions before having any risk. But yeah, we obviously as an organization want to make sure we have everything in line and have many plans in place and backup plans should we need to make tweaks. And that could look like going to countries that won't, are at low risk, or not crossing as many borders, because sometimes that can cause. So it, again, obviously will depend on how things look 60 days from now and beyond. But we certainly have things in the works and looking at options, and we will come up with those before the risk-free period is over with. Hopefully that answers the question. Rebecca, let me know if there's anything else to touch on. I'm going to jump to Ethan. We have, to begin, I think that all the social benefits are amazing. As you were saying, getting to build yourself and fit into your own shoes are so important. But have you found any monetary educational time benefits? Maybe any credit in college? So obviously, Helen, you talked about that. Things to put on a resume. Anything else there? I know, Diego, you've obviously talked about that you got into your dream school because you used your experience in your personal essay and whatnot, right?
So I would definitely say there's more than just, social and making friends, like the benefits that you'll see. I put a ton of the things that I did on my activity list from the gap year for college. I mean, even some things that like my peers didn't, like some of my peers only put like, the language, service, and internship. But for me, I kind of looked at it as a whole, like, what am I doing? Like, oh my gosh, I remember in Costa Rica, we went to the UN mandated University for Peace, and we did a workshop there. Like, let me put that, like, that sounds super impressive. And so it's just all about like, different things that you're doing, keeping an eye out for those. So yeah, I definitely was able to put some things on a resume and my activities list, because for the schools I applied to in Europe, you actually have to send a CV. So I was able to take what I learned from making a CV for my internship with EF, and I redid that CV and all that information. And I was accepted to a few of those schools too. So it worked.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. I'm going to jump to the next question here. Again, just want to keep my eye on the clock, and I know we have several more questions. But Diego, I'm going to keep it with you. We have Joy and Alex interested in service learning in Costa Rica. How was your daily life? What was your schedule like?
Oh, Costa Rica. Oh my gosh. I say it really just depends, honestly, on what service location you're at. I remember one of the rural communities that we went to in Costa Rica. It was called Rancho Quemado. There we woke up around like 7:30. We were greeted with like a big breakfast that like the locals had made for us when we were staying. And then we would visit like one of the houses in town that specialized on something. One was like chocolate, one was like the dairy. So they all like specialized in different things. And then we toured one of their houses, and then we would do like a service project. And so we like would either like, replant a garden that they had, or clean up, the soccer field, like break up the entire soccer field, and just the different service projects throughout the week. And then we would actually get a snack from them. Two ladies would come to like wherever we were working, and they would give us like little snacks throughout the day. And then we'll have lunch. You'll do a little bit more service work, and then we had like a dinner where we all just kind of hung out. But it really just depends what service location you're in. But I would say you pretty much wake up at like 8-ish, or sometimes we would be able to wake up at like 10 when we were in like the capital. And also just depends like where you're staying. One place we stood at like a hotel, but then like when you're in the rural, spots, we actually were hosted by the community and like a little, I don't know what, a hostel, I guess more, that they had there. So it really just depends what project you're working on at that time. Volume.
Thank you. So I think a lot of great points there. So for those unaware, service learning, the entire module is a mix of working with service projects, and then some of it's traveling the country, seeing, some sites and things like that. So I think exactly Diego's point, it like depends on where you are in the itinerary. Since someone asked what are the types of living situations throughout the year, but more importantly, service learning, do you want to talk a little bit about that, Diego, of like what types of, you mentioned hostels, but what are the living? Yep.
So I definitely gonna add on to the last question, like you said. So we actually did like 14, I think, days of work, and then we got like a 3-day break. 3 different 3-day breaks throughout our time there. So it was definitely a good mix of work and, still touring and all that. With that said, so the different accommodations definitely vary from each module. During immersion, there are a lot of hostels or inns or hotels, so it mixes, but they were all like super cool and like trendy and like really our age, and like it was just like really cool being in that like atmosphere. And then going into language, I had like an awesome host dad situation. I had like a 20-minute walk to the school, and like he accommodated like my vegetarian diet and like made different meals for me. So that was really cool. I had like a room there with a bed that I shared. Okay, I didn't share the bed. I had a room there that I shared with my roommate. But it was actually good because like last week I was there, he left, so I got that whole room to myself. And my host dad surprised me by like taking out the other bed, and like he put a desk in. So it was really cool, and I really enjoyed that. And then going into service, it's hostels for the vacation, relaxation breaks. And then during service, we had a hotel one time, which was actually really nice. And then, if you're in the rural community, then you'll have like whatever accommodations that they have for you. But none of them were honestly too bad. But at the same time, I think you need to remember the purpose for why you're there. You're on service. You're supposed to be kind of more selfless and giving. So you're not there to stay at a 5-star resort, because that honestly takes away from the things that you can learn and grow from. So don't look at those things as negative. Look at them as positives, because you're experiencing, the different lifestyles around the world. And then going into Australia, that time it was a lot more like hotels and inns. And then an internship, I had a really cool like apartment style kind of thing. It was called the Student Hotel. And I had my own room with a bathroom. And then I had a communal kitchen with the other people from EF who were there. And we had like a refrigerator that we put all our food in, and we would cook there. There was actually like a restaurant at the bottom of the student hotel where we got like a discount, which was really nice. So yeah, those were the accommodations throughout the year.
Great. Thank you so much, Diego. How about what is the demographic like within the group? Who wants to talk about that? Sarah, thank you.
So it's pretty mixed. Like we had, I think, about 50 kids in our gap semester program, and they're all ages, all ethnicities. It was it was a pretty wide range of types of people, and like honestly, you get a lot of people who are either from the city or like from somewhere in the Midwest or like East and West Coasts. And we even had a girl from Alaska, and it's really cool because you get to learn a lot about where people come from too. So it's really pretty mixed. You usually get like 18 to like 20s, I think. But there was one girl in there that was 17 also.
Great. Thank you so much. How about what made you pick the modules you picked? Maybe one of you can talk to this a little bit, how you picked where you went. Sarah?
So I picked double internship, which only one other person did, and she also picked Sydney. And I picked that because I thought 4 weeks wasn't long enough for me to learn about a company and really get in there and make a difference. So I picked double internship, and I chose to forego a service learning opportunity and a language study because I'm bilingual in Spanish. I was raised in a Spanish household, and I've also done a lot of service work in the past, so I felt like that area of my resume was covered. So I really just wanted to invest into an internship to have that on my resume and prove myself in the business aspect, I guess.
Great. Thank you. How about what did you do in your free time and how far did you stray from your home city? Helen, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So I love my free time, obviously. And especially like on the tours and stuff, I was always trying to find, a little, path off of the beaten trail. I don't know if that's that saying, but to sort of explore alone because I, needed some introvert time. And I found that, it can be really relaxing to like get away from the group for a little bit. And so, on my free time, I would totally explore the whole city, even if I hadn't been there. So, for instance, on our last day in Thailand, we were, everybody was like packing and like getting ready to go and being sad. But I decided that like I had this last day, and I wasn't gonna like let it go to waste. So I like took the metro system by myself, like to like the middle of urban Bangkok, and I was shopping and like doing my own little thing, and that was really great. And so for free time during your day, you can go anywhere like during the day, anywhere in the city. Like you should be feeling safe enough and strong enough to go do those things. And I even did some side trips as well. So I went to Zurich for the weekend when I was in Milan. I went to Copenhagen with a few friends from the gap year on a weekend during my internship, which was really great and a great opportunity, and also does not have to be super expensive. So like flying in Europe and taking trains and stuff is so cheap. And we were able to take a probably like $30 train from Milan to Zurich, and stay in a Airbnb or something that was really also inexpensive. And that was just a great life skill to acquire as well, because now I'm able to do that at home. So yeah, your free time is yours and you can make it anything you want. If that means staying in and relaxing because this is all really overwhelming, then you do that because sometimes that's necessary. But you can make it as adventurous as you want. Like the opportunities are literally endless. So yeah, just get creative.
Awesome, Helen. I think that's one of the kind of the things that you have to work on is like balancing that time to kind of restore, relax, like rest, because obviously you're out, you can do a million things, but also taking advantage of the opportunity of living in a place that you might never live in again. So having that opportunity and taking it. How about, I'm going to phrase this question in terms of what kind of support systems were in place for you guys to adjust and manage, and how are students' safety and well-being supported? So just answering that as a student, Diego, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can definitely say that EF did a really good job at supporting all the students on the gap year and making sure that, not only their physical health was good, but also their mental health was good. I had a lot of friends that were struggling, with homesickness and all that, and even myself included. And we're always welcome to call the gap year, email the gap year about anything we were feeling or had questions about. So I would definitely say that there's a good support system with them, but you also have a lot of the friends that you've made. That is your support system on ground, and they are with you. They know what you're going through. They're homesick too. So you kind of really use each other as support system to get through this. But as much as you might feel like homesickness, it really helps with your growth throughout the year. But yeah. Oh, and tour guides. Tour guides are an amazing support system. They were my support system, especially during service. That's a big one.
Yeah, so there's tour directors, there's different EF staff that might be there with you, during any of the immersion tours, obviously service learning, during internship and language, you have contacts on the ground, but then as Diego mentioned, you have your advisors that you can always call 24/7 and have, depending on if you need someone immediately versus, just want to chat. Great. Yeah, Diego.
Sorry, you just made me realize, oh my gosh, every place has people on the ground. But yeah, so in Barcelona, you have the school. I got really close to one of the ladies at the school, and she was definitely a big support system for me there. And I still message her to this day. And then even in internship, I had an on-ground guide. So we were super independent during the internship module. But with her, she actually took us out to eat every Thursday, or we did an activity like blue light, mini golf. So she was kind of our support system. How's the internship going? How are you doing? Are you eating? So she was definitely there for us, making sure that we were all doing good during that internship. So support system, 10 out of 10 from you.
Thanks, Diego. Awesome. Great question here. We have, I don't know. Oh, sorry. Is there anything you recommend doing, classes, jobs, etc., before going on the gap year semester to better prepare yourself? Does anyone? Yeah, Sarah, you just jumped off mute.
So past travel experience comes in majorly, but I would practice budgeting yourself, because I had a lot of friends who got to Europe, and most people, you see all these cute clothes or fun accessories and stuff like that, and you just want to buy because you don't know when you'll get the chance again. So something I did before I went was I worked all summer long, 2 jobs, so that I could save up about $2,000 to support myself. And I didn't run out as fast as I thought I would, but I did run out. So I budgeted myself $1,000 for Europe, and I went over by $120. And I limited myself to $80 a day maximum, and that was $50 on food, $10 on coffee, and then $30 on activities or shopping. But I found that Europe was kind of the time where I splurged a little bit, and then I really reined myself in my internship. So that included spending about $200 a week on groceries, and then meal prepping and bringing my own lunches, buying coffee in bulk. And that taught me a lot of life skills that I didn't know I was going to need. And I think that was really important, is to you figure out how to control yourself and curb spending habits that might be unsavory to your bank account. And I also felt like I was living a lot healthier. I'm vegan, so I eat a lot of French fries and stuff like that. So I stopped doing that to not spend as much money. But yeah, it's definitely learning how to budget, and then just how to get along with everybody. Working in different environments is really important, and kind of understanding that not everyone's going to be exactly the same as you are. Living with someone else might be difficult. So me and my roommate in Sydney, we sat down every Monday and had dinner together, And if there was something she was doing that I didn't like, we talk about it, and vice versa. So it's just like learning how to get along with everybody as well.
Great, amazing, and well done on your budgeting. Diego, you want to hop in?
Yeah, I would definitely second the budgeting. I kind of thought about this in a different way, but definitely budget. I set aside about 2,000 per semester. So I was on a really strict budget, and that was kind of hard. You know, you're gonna have people in your cohort who are, you know, blowing all sorts of money, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, should I just blow all my money right now? But don't. So it definitely taught me budgeting skills that I'm gonna have well beyond this year. But I would say maybe do some research about the places you're picking, the weather, and the kind of lifestyles they lead. Because I know some people who had locations are like, wait, why did I even pick this? Like, I kind of just picked this and I didn't research about it. So I definitely say research your places so that you have the best gap year that you can.
Amazing. And actually just want to jump on, someone asked about scholarships. Diego, I know that you applied for a scholarship and were one of our recipients, right?
Yes, I was. I applied for both of them actually, which I know you can't get both, but I did anyways. I applied for the Global Fellowship, Global Influencer Fellowship. And so for that one, I did some like social media work with EF, and I worked with them, you know, doing some things for them. So for that, I had to create like 1-page marketing proposal. And so I made like a little slogan and like all that stuff. So yeah, definitely apply for a scholarship though. It helped me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's see. We are getting down to the last few questions here. How about, what was orientation like? Who wants to talk about that?
I mean, I'm
Orientation is interesting because it's,
okay,
you know, the goal is to get our students to meet each other, and then to really go through things that are really important for students' safety, well-being, you know, all of that. So it's certainly not the best part of the program, but it's necessary. But who wants to talk about maybe that briefly?
I can speak to it. I've been through it twice. So I actually came back to this this past year's orientation. I met Diego there as an alumni sort of ambassador and to answer questions. And so like from both times, I just realized how it can feel like you're totally jumping in the deep end of a pool and so overwhelming. And I watched them get off the bus and they were meeting each other. And I just like, it really touched my heart because that was exactly how mine was. You know, like I got off of the bus and, you know, you're greeted with these, you know, 50 or however many faces that you've only seen online. And you all have this one thing in common and you're all going to take a gap year and you're so excited about it. Like, you just can't believe this is happening. And, you know, you go through all of the activities and orientation, you know, sort of group lessons and stuff with just this excitement and this, you know, eagerness to learn about your upcoming year. And it's really informative. So they'll give you like a safety briefing. They'll bring in, you know, people to talk to you about things like safety and budgeting, and, you know, like being a global leader. And so, you know, for instance, we talked about how service learning is working with the community to create a change instead of like bringing your own change to their community. So I thought that's just something I think about a lot still, and has impacted the way that I view the world. And orientation it can be overwhelming, but it can just be so exciting. And once you are oriented, you're just so ready to, you know, take on the whole experience. But you still will encounter problems that maybe you couldn't have prepared for. Like, you know, I got on a train once and realized it was the wrong train and I just had to pay for the new ticket and it was so expensive, but that's something that they couldn't have prepared me for. So you just have to be adaptable, but orientation will definitely, it's just a wholesome and exciting experience.
Thank you, Helen, so much. Okay, so we have a question. I don't know what I want to do in life at all, but feel that I could make either one work. Would you recommend the gap year or jumping into college life?
Okay, Sarah. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. It's okay.
I would say just honestly take a gap year if that's how it is for you. If you are wondering if you should go to college or taking a gap year, I would definitely recommend taking a gap year because college is always going to be there. And now I'm like, oh, I have all these amazing, worldly experience. I feel so much more cultured, independent, ready. And then now I get to go to the college I want to and study something that I know 100% sure I want to, and I have a plan for that and after college. So I would definitely recommend taking a gap year because you will still be able to get that college experience after.
Thank you so much, Diego. How about, I want to become fluent in a new language. Do students have a lot of success through language proficiency in your program? Do you have facts to share this? Do you offer before and after tests to gauge success? So who wants to talk about language, Helen or Diego? We talked a little bit about it, but yeah, Diego.
I said this before, but I would definitely say, like, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. I know a lot of people in my group didn't study, and then there's people who did study. So it's all about, what you put into it. Yes, you're in the whatever amazing city you're in, and you may not want to, do whatever one-page homework assignment they give to you, or, maybe your friend is like gonna skip class or whatever, but go to class and do your work, and that's where you're gonna see the improvement, like I did, and like some of my other cohorts did. And it's fun, like all these international kids are at the school, so you get to like talk to people from like Germany and Italy who are learning the same language as you, and you share different parts about your culture. So I definitely would just say, like, you get out of it what you put into it, and you literally don't have to put a lot because you have like class time. So the time outside of class is like maybe 1 hour, if that.
Yeah, great, Diego. And I think to answer on the testing, you come in and you test at whatever level you're at, and then you'll know where you end up. So typically people move up one level, but obviously if you put more in, you could move further. It also depends on how long, if you're doing semester or year. And I also think along Diego's point, if you choose to just speak in English with anyone that will speak in English, you're not going to grow as much as, you're not going to learn as much. So that's why the host family and the teachers in the school will speak to you in that language. So I know that can be hard at times, but that's to get the most out of it, right?
Yeah, I remember I was at my host's apartment, and my host's dad's like girlfriend came into my room because me and my roommate were talking English, and she was like, Espanol, Espanol. And we were like, what? So, yeah.
Yeah, they try to get you to. I know some people resist, but if you want to learn, that's the way to do it. That's why it's full immersion. Okay, we've got from Drew, what surprised you most about your gap experience?
I'll take this one. So I was so surprised because I did not think I was going to have as much fun in Europe as I did. I was so excited to just get to Sydney, relax. I love my alone time. I love traveling by myself. So I was just so excited to like rush through Europe and get to my internship and just plant myself. But Europe, I'd already been to Amsterdam, and we went, and it was like the first time I experienced the city in a different way. I'd never been to London or Barcelona or Paris. I think what surprised me most is that I didn't think I was going to have as much fun traveling in a group as I did. And you get to see the city in a different way versus when you go out with a group, when you go out with a couple of friends. So like there's just, I don't know really the best way to put it, but I just learned so much about Europe as a whole and then each city individually. And I was surprised because I didn't think I was going to love the European immersion as much as I did.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah. Let's see. This is a good one. What was your biggest challenge you had and something you didn't expect but ended in something positive? So, I mean, everyone will go through challenges, right? We know. And this is where growth happens outside of your comfort zone. Who wants to talk about a challenge that they went through? Helen.
Yeah, I can talk about a challenge. So there's just a few to choose from. I'm trying to like pick. So definitely challenges are going to arise. And I already talked about how like one time I got on the wrong train, and that was like a big problem because I just had to pay for the train ticket. But so one time this was during my solo, it was during a solo trip. And so I had arrived in Paris, and I was, getting settled in. And then my friends were like, hey, like, look out your window, like, what'd you do? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my friend's at home. And then I realized that the Notre Dame was burning down, and I was there, and it was on fire. And so I was calling my parents, I was calling my French aunt, and they were all, also freaking out. And so that was definitely a scary experience to be in the city during such a global or globally broadcast event. They had no idea why it was, burning down. They had no idea what the repercussions would be. The dynamics of the city were completely, somber. And definitely, I have friends who we're in cities during such major events, and you don't know how to handle that as a teenager. But now I think back on it and I'm like, wow, that was an amazing experience. I have a newspaper saved from it. I really like adapted to being in such a gloomy city, and I observed how it was, like bonding together after the fact. And it's an amazing story to tell. So like most of the time your challenges will turn into amazing stories, and stories that are completely unrelatable, that your friends will just like totally not be able to grasp, because it's just such a, you'll look back on it and you won't even, think that that was a challenge. You'll just think that that was something that you overcame and lived through. So, yeah.
Thank you, Helen. Does anybody else want to share any challenge they face? Because I think this is something that obviously hits home to everyone. Yeah, Diego.
I think everybody's going to face their own challenges in their own unique way. It's going to be different for everyone. But I lost my phone when I was in Barcelona. So it was a really weird experience to navigate, because it was at the end of immersion going into the language module. And so that was kind of, hard, but I had my support system of my friends who I had known for 2 weeks, and they helped me like contact my mom. And I had my tour guide still there. And so I was able to get a phone and all that stuff while I was there. But that was definitely a stressful time, I would say. But I was able to get over it. And now my phone is like set in like to European standards, like kilometers and like commas and stuff like that. So it's my favorite souvenir, I like to say.
And I think that also teaches everyone to keep an eye on their things and be super careful with their stuff, because there's always one person that ends up teaching the whole group a lesson in that. Sarah, anything that you dealt with challenge-wise on the road? I'm sure you did, but anything you want to share?
Yeah, I got like severely dehydrated in Paris. And I had to go to the hospital because I was like passing out and freaking out because I don't speak any French. And EF like day within the hour organized a translator to come with me to the hospital. And I got there okay. I was on an IV for a little bit and then I was fine. But it ended up being okay because I got to see what a Parisian hospital was like. And yeah, it was tough because like you don't really think about like what bad could happen when you're in these sort of like situations of traveling. But it's like preparing for the unexpected. You could get sick, but most of the time it's going to be something minor like being dehydrated or something like that. And I learned to be a little bit more optimistic and to always drink water. That's why EF gives you a water bottle.
So true. Yeah, I think with all the travel and going place to place, students tend to get sick, usually colds or something like that. You can usually expect over their 25-week experience, but obviously there are more extreme situations, and we're obviously always going to be there to help. But it is also a lesson. Let's see, our last question, and this one always is a hot topic. We'll have other sessions about this, but how stressful was packing? What kind of luggage did you use, and what do you regret, or what saved you?
I brought a large suitcase and then a small suitcase and a duffel bag. So I got to take my carry-on items, I had a backpack and a duffel bag and a big suitcase. So I got to do a stowaway item under the seat, a carry-on that goes above, and then checked one bag. And I definitely felt like I had more than enough clothes. we were leaving in the fall, so I packed some colder weather clothing. And then I was going right into summer in Sydney where it was 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So I had some warmer weather clothing. And then I had like my fun clothes and my internship clothes. And I think what was most helpful is that my cousin told me this is to pack all of your outfits and lay them out as you're packing. So I had all of my outfits that I wanted to wear roll up together, and that definitely saved me some space, and I never had to pay an overage fee. So I feel like that was a big win. But EF gives you packing cubes, and I 100% recommend packing cubes. They're a lifesaver. And travel on sizes. You can find them at like CVS or Costco or anything. And yeah, it's stressful, but like I promise you, like every grocery store or little like pharmacy everywhere else has everything you'll need. And don't worry about like if you forget something, odds are someone else in your group has it, and everyone's so nice they're gonna let you borrow something. So don't freak out.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I know we'll have future sessions later this summer on packing, but I think it's always, the big question of what to pack, and some people pack a lot and too much. So we always try to say less is more. You never want to be that person that has too many bags that the bus can't fit them all, as I'm sure some of you have witnessed. That is all for our questions. I want to thank our alumni so much. You guys, awesome, so helpful. I hope our audience were able to get many takeaways out of this. Thank you so much to all of our audience and for people that submitted questions. That was great questions, and we really appreciate it. Everyone who attended tonight's webinar is pre-qualified for filling out the application, so that will be sent out tomorrow, just a heads up on that. But otherwise, thank you everyone. Please let your contacts at Gap Year know if you have any questions. Obviously, we're happy to dive into anything else. And Diego, Helen, Sarah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And good luck to everyone. Hope you're all staying well, staying safe. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.